Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, it's game day. The Sens are hosting the Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche, and Ridley Greig is back in the mix.
Speaking of mix, DJ Smith has put the D pairs in a blender. We're going to get into what that means for tonight's game.
And how did Brady Tkachuk spend his first day back at home after a 2-week road trip, giving back to the Senators community? Meet Kachuk's captains. We'll get into what that is and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
And welcome to episode 757 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Senators on your favorite audio podcast platforms, and we're available for free on YouTube. Today is Thursday, March 16th, and Pilsy, it's about time that we see some new D pairs.
Yeah, I think we've been very focused on the forward lines changing and trying to get certain guys going and trying to get lines popping, but the D-corps was in need of some changes, in my opinion, as well, because it wasn't all on the forwards here. So I'm glad we've made some changes, and it's still a bit of a gray area, Ross, as we're recording here at 11:30 Eastern. I'm not sure how much Chabot's going to be involved or if he will play in this game. They said he's going to be a game-time decision, but having him on line rushes make me think that it's more likely that he is going to play rather than not. But he's not with his usual partner in Artem Zub. They've got him paired up with Erik Brannstrom, which is a very interesting pair.
And on the third pair, quote unquote, the top two pairs. And I think you're right. It is very strange to see Chabot anywhere but that top left side.
Yeah.
When's the last time, when he's healthy, that he hasn't been in that top side left position? Like 2018?
Gotta be.
Oh my goodness. The more things change, the more they stay the same. But here with the biggest news for this, though, and the pairs are Chychrun on the top pair with Travis Hamonic. Then you have Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, and then, as you mentioned, Chabot Brannstrom. But Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, to me, I want to see more of. Now, the numbers have been kind of okay. They've only played 29 minutes together at even strength all season long. The most that he's played, Jake Sanderson that is, with a player not named Travis Hamonic is 54 minutes. He's played 741 minutes with Travis Hamonic. So we can talk all we want about Chabot and how maybe that's a necessary change to give him less minutes, even if he does come back after blocking that shot. Sounds like it's a foot issue for Shabby. But I think the biggest news on this D-corps is splitting up Sanderson with Travis Hamonic. What do you think that's going to do for Sanderson's game here, being with a little bit more of a defensively responsible guy with the puck? I think Hamonic, we talked about, he blocks shots. He does all those things right, can throw hits. But with Zub, I think it's going to help the breakout so much.
I mean, we hope so, right? You hope that that's what it can change. And Ross, when this season started and we were talking about, okay, who's going to play where, I had Sanderson with Artem Zub as the pair that I wanted to see. And then, I mean, Chabot, just throw Zaitsev up there, I guess, is what I had going for that mix. But I'm glad that's not an issue anymore. I think it's going to be good. And hopefully, Ross, as much as this is an impact on Sanderson, I'm going to flip this a little and focus more on how this can be a positive impact on Artem Zub. I think Zub has been a little bit underwhelming the last couple weeks. Now, obviously, you got to give him a bit of a pass as he's been dealing with a broken jaw and a couple other injuries this year. So hasn't exactly been ideal for him. But Artem Zub used to be that guy that we said put anyone beside him and they're going to thrive. So you would think Chabot and Zub, that's a pair that should work really on paper and in Sens fans' minds. But Chabot and Zub has not been what we've hoped. So I think for both players' sake, it's good to switch that up. And Now with Sanderson and Zubros, when you're going up against the Colorado Avalanche team that has a stacked top line, that could be a nice shutdown line that you hope can stifle the likes of Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon.
As the Sens losing streak reached 3 games from losses in Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton, Artem Zub's game was not great. You look at the expected goals percentage, 37%, 26%, 27% in those 3 games. Now, again, we're not really fancy stats guys, but when you're so far out of the norm, for lack of a better term, it is just concerning. And when it's the guy who fans, coaches, management, they all think he's the defensive stalwart of this group, I'm interested to see how he responds here, because I'm sure this will wake up call to everybody on the back end, right? Even when Chychrun came in, you're like, oh, right? Everyone else is kind of wondering every day when they come in and look at the board of who's playing with who. It's like, well, we acquired a top 4 defenseman, and on paper, he's listed at the bottom pair. Eventually, things are going to change. How does that affect me? Well, now we can see how everything's been shuffled up. We'll see what happens with Thomas Chabot, but I am curious to see Chychrun with Hamonic, because I think in the pairs he's been with before, for the most part of his time in Ottawa, he's been looked at as kind of the guy who's going to be a good two-way guy, whereas I think this kind of lets the chains off offensively a little bit more, playing with a steady, like only a defensive presence. And sure, Holden was the same. We know he played a lot with him in the first couple of games, but when he's playing with Brannstrom, when he's playing with Chabot, he probably thinks, okay, I got to be that two-way guy. I think we're going to see him kind of push the pace offensively, and I think that's probably the next step of what I want to see with Jakob Chychrun, is just a little more confidence, like holding on to pucks through the neutral zone and kind of being that one-man zone entry as well. So tons of intrigue, and you're playing against, and we'll get to the full game day preview, but this is not the same Avalanche that won the Cup last year. Not only without Nazem Kadri, who's obviously a big part of it, moving on in free agency, they've been able to rectify that and kind of build from within, but they've also got a ton of injuries. So they played last night. They got a shootout win in Toronto. They're on a 3-game win streak, so it's not like you're taking the defending champs lightly. I'm just saying they're not going to come at you in waves like they did being 3 lines deep. Even like their depth guys, like Arturi Lehkonen, who's out of the lineup tonight, like they're missing a bunch of these secondary and tertiary scorers, these threats that can make an impact on the game. I'm not going to call them a one-line team, but that one line is an A++ line when you have McKinnon and Rantanen on the top unit together. So I'm curious to see how the Sens D-corps is deployed tonight. We'll talk about that in the postcast, but all in all, are you happy with how these D pairs are shaking out? Let's say Chabot does play, and it is for the most part with Erik Brannstrom.
Yeah, I'm happy there's change. Like that road trip was simply unacceptable. So you have to do something, especially when you're hanging on to your playoff hopes, Ross. They had to do something. And look, I'm a fan of Chabot and Brannstrom as a pair. I know our pal Williams Martian on Twitter said, hey, they just going to get torched all night. Well, yeah, maybe defensively that's not your strongest unit, but I think this is one of those scenarios where sometimes a good defense is a good offense. Like if you can have those guys with good puck possession and driving offense, hopefully you don't have to worry too much about defense. And they've actually been one of the better defensive pairs on this team, Ross. Mind you, they haven't played a whole lot. I'm looking at natural stat trick right now. 111 minutes, so that's not a terrible small sample size, but their Corsi for percentage is at 60%. And other than Hamonic and Brannstrom, that's the best. And then you get down into guys that have only played like 20 minutes together. But for guys with decent minutes together, they have some of the best Corsi numbers. And I think it's because the offense opponents, they can't just be like, okay, we're going to dump it in on the defensive guy's end and make him handle the puck and pressure him, or we're going to focus offensively on this guy. Both of them are offensive guys that can move the puck up the ice, so it makes it challenging for forecheckers to decide what route they're going to take and how they're going to attack that pair. Now, when the Sens are hemmed in their own end and you got Branny and Chabot trying to defend the box and in front of the net and clear the puck, maybe that's not the pair you want on there, especially if you're getting to 45 seconds to a minute where you're stuck in your own zone. But I think it's worth a try because Tom Chabot just has not been able to find a partner. And if you've got a guy that it's worked with, I think it's worth the try, especially when you're trying to drive offense. That's been one of the biggest issues of this team as of late, Ross, is there's no offense. Sure, they're getting 5+ goals scored on them each game, but they're not able to match up with these teams and score in bunches and come back with them. So I think in small sample sizes, Chabot and Brannstrom is a nice pair to work with, but would I want them as a pair all season long? No, I think you could run into some problems there. But with the way this is shaking out, I'm excited to see how they do, and hopefully Chabot does end up playing, and we get to see that.
7:00 puck drop tonight in Ottawa. The return home.
Thank God.
When they left, there were "we want playoff" chants. I think those were going to be muted tonight.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to hear too much about that, unfortunately.
The New York Islanders got a victory over the Ducks, who can't do anybody a favor this year. They lose 6-3, and now the gap is 8 points between the New York Islanders and the Ottawa Senators. However, the Sens do have 3 games in hand, so it could be just 2. But
hold on to those. Yeah,
there are some teams in the way. The Sens are going to have to get on the win column and consistently if we're even going to pull up standings anymore. That was a fun week when we were pulling up the standings every show. We're not there yet, but a win tonight could go a long way against the defending champs who played 65 minutes plus a shootout last night in Toronto. Now, not much travel in there. They probably got in, 1 a.m., but hopefully the Sens can take advantage of the Colorado Avalanche, because we know damn well the Sens have been that team on the second half of back-to-backs with travel where they haven't been exactly sharp, to say the least. Full game day preview coming up. We're also going to give some stick taps to Lassie Thompson in particular and the Belleville Senators, who earned a big 2 points last night in regulation to boot. We'll get into all that and more. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network and America's #1 sportsbook. And guys, if you're new to FanDuel or you haven't tried it out, now is the time. You get a no sweat first bet. This is crazy. Up to $1,000. Some sports books, they offer 100, or they'll match 50% or something like that. FanDuel is looking at $1,000 in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. So download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. You guys know I love using the FanDuel app, and you can bet on everything from money line to point scores to point spread, player props, shot totals, whatever you want. And I'm bringing it back, Ross. It hasn't hit recently, but I'm going with the FanDuel first to 5 shots for the Sens. Tough road trip. They're up against the Avalanche back at home. I think they're going to come out flying. So I think they're going to get the first 5 shots on goal. That's a FanDuel exclusive bet you can only find on their app. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance for the no sweat first bet, up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Today's episode is also brought to you by the Glebe Central Pub. You know we love our friends at the Glebe Central Pub. You can visit them at 779 Bank Street, and when you do, make sure you let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. Now, every day is a great day to head down to the Glebe Central Pub, but they get into the spirit of St. Paddy's Day. Tomorrow at the Glebe Central Pub, we have an all-Irish Day menu, all-Irish food menu on St. Paddy's Day. They've got the Kilkenny corn dogs. Are you kidding me? An Irish cream ale battered sausage served with grainy mustard. They've got bangers and mash. You can get a Guinness beef stew. And of course, how about a baby Guinness shot? That's wild. It looks like Guinness, but it's no Guinness. You'll see where it is. You can get the Irish car bomb, a beer and a buddy, all sorts of great moves at the Glebe Central Pub.
The Irish car bomb, Ross, that's a throwback. I remember first time trying those. I believe it's a shot of Bailey's in a Guinness, right? That's the Irish car bomb. So that's a classic, and that's definitely one way to get your day started.
And the Irish, how do I say this? The Irish fun goes past the food menu and the drink menu at the Glebe Central Pub tomorrow. They've got live music from 1:30 all the way until midnight, and doors open at 10:30 a.m.
Woo!
So you are not going to have a problem getting and hanging out and having a great time at the Glebe Central Pub. 10 a.m. on Friday. You can go to the Glebe Central Pub, and they also have shuttle buses on the 16th tonight. So get your tickets, $15, GlebeCentralPub.com. And on Saturday for the Leafs. We do not want that to be a Leafs bus. We want Sens fans. Get on there. Get your tickets, $15 round trip to and from the game to the Glebe Central Pub. Go see them at 779 Bank Street and make sure you let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pillsy. I want to touch on this story, and this could have been the lead story. So cool when players who aren't from Ottawa make this community their home. And that's what the captain, Brady Tkachuk, has done with his fiance, Emma, as well. We got to give a stick tap to Emma because that's a joint decision, a joint initiative for Brady Tkachuk and Emma. With the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa, they have introduced Kachuk's captains. Pilsy, how would you describe what Kachuk's captains is going to mean to the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa and the community as a whole?
I think it's going to mean a lot, Ross, and credit to you giving Emma a shout out as well, because it's the Boys and Girls Club. So I think it's important for the boys and girls to have someone like Brady and Emma that they can have for support. And I think it's really important to focus on the youth, especially like I can't even imagine what it's like for youth going through these COVID times where school was constantly getting shut down. You can't play with your friends. Organized sports is canceled. And that just has so much effect on these kids and sets them back even, I would say. So for Brady and Emma to be giving to the Boys and Girls Club, I think is huge. There's over 4,500 young members each year. There's 19 neighborhoods that they serve, and they've made significant private financial donations to help the growth. They're going to be spending a lot of time with these kids. They're going to be all around the area and giving their support. So I think it's massive. And Ross, we talk about the game tonight. There's going to be 100 children from the Boys and Girls Club that are going to be at the game courtesy of Brady and Emma tonight's game up against the Colorado Avalanche. So I think it's important for them to not only give back to the community, but I like what Brady said. Like there's an overwhelming amount of options where you can kind of give your time and your charity thoughts and even your financial support. But for them to find a cause that really felt like they could connect to and hang out with these kids and see them grow and help support them, I think it's just huge. So this is a massive move. And Brady Tkachuk's the captain of this team. He's signed here long term. So for him to show that he really cares about this community and wants to invest in it, not just financially, but with his time, is a massive move. And especially after coming back from a tough road trip, you know, you wouldn't blame the guy if he wants to get home and just have a nice meal and have an early night or something like that. But he goes out and he shows that this community matters to him. So big stick taps to Brady and Emma.
Amazing. He mentions he knows he's part of the leadership group. He's proud of it, and he's certainly making that known. Great family, the Kachuks, being able to, raised right, both he and Matthew, and they're able to do this. And Emily Farinacci, if I'm pronouncing that right, soon to be Mrs. Kachuk. Let's say it like that as well. But they're providing resources to underprivileged youth, and they care about, the physical well-being, leadership development, and teaching the importance of responsibility in a safe environment as well. And something else that's of note here is that they've made a significant private financial donation. They're not in it for the photo ops or anything like that. I truly believe that they care about these kids and want the best for them as well. So Kachuk's Captains is the name of the program as well. And that's an annual initiative that will see 7 members of each of the 4 clubs, so 28 kids in the city, awarded the captaincy for their role in day-to-day leadership. So that's pretty cool. I don't know if you saw the announcement yesterday, but they were giving out the C's that Brady Tkachuk wears game in and game out and represents our city very, very well. So stick taps to Brady Tkachuk, stick taps to Emma as well, and the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa. I'm sure they're very appreciative of that. So we wanted to shine a light on that. And great that he'll have some fans in attendance from that at tonight's game. Pilsy, does that mean that a Levy Lock is going to have to come out here? Because I don't know if people remember But just last season, early in the season, so it feels like a long time ago, Brady Tkachuk 2 goals, including the overtime winner to beat the Colorado Avalanche. You remember that? He gave the crowd. It's on all of his highlight reels, where he's giving it to the crowd as well. Goes high blocker on that one and gets the game winner. So I'm feeling a big night from the captain tonight. Big night.
Me too. Yeah, I'm going to be hitting his over shots and maybe even points totals on FanDuel Sportsbook app. So, yeah, I think it is a great move by Brady, and I think he's going to play with a little extra motivation, knowing he just hung out with those kids, made that big commitment. They're all there watching. So, yeah, look out for number 7.
Look out for number 7, and look out for number 17. Ridley Greig is back in the mix. Where is he going to play? We'll get into all that. Plus, the Belleville Senators have a huge opportunity ahead of them after 2 more big points last night. That's all coming up on the other side. You're listening to Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, game day for the Ottawa Senators. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 8 points back. But they've got 3 games in hand. 3 games in hand. No games, though, against the Islanders. So Ottawa can't control their own destiny from that standpoint. And Jesus, does it not feel like the Pittsburghs and the Islanders of the world are just playing like the bottom feeders over and over and over and over again? You had to rely on the Ducks last night?
Yeah, you can't rely on those Ducks, that's for sure, unfortunately. But Ross, I will say, last game, I think it was very obvious. I did not think the Ottawa Senators had a chance to win. We didn't even do keys to victory. We did keys to improvement. And I bet against the Sens, something I don't do often. That's how sure I was that game was going down the tube, and it did. I'm feeling positive about this one. Positive? Yeah, I got to get my Positive Pillsy shirt out. Positive Pillsy is going to make an appearance tonight hopefully he's going to make an appearance. Hopefully he sticks around. But this is a Colorado Avalanche team. You mentioned it, on the second half of a back-to-back. They have, I think, 8 different injuries. So their lineup is just decimated. And the Sens are returning home. The Boys and Girls Club, Brady is going to have a big night. I think we're going to see a much different team tonight than we saw on this road trip. So adjust your bets accordingly, because I think this is going to be a big bounce back game.
I hope so. Who do you want to start with for our game day preview? Should we start with the Sens or the Avalanche?
Let's go Avalanche.
Okay. Mix it up a little bit. So we know they're dealing with a ton of injuries, from Josh Manson on the back end. Up front, no Arturi Lehkonen, no Darren Helm, and the big one who hasn't played all season.
The captain. Yeah.
Gabriel Landeskog. He was expected to be out until at least March 15th. Today's March 16th, but no sign of him returning in tonight's game, unfortunately, because the league's better when Landeskog's in there. Kind of Brady Tkachuk-esque type captain.
Big time.
He's going to be the physical leader, but he's also going to score, do all sorts of things. Damn you, Craig Anderson, for ruining the tank in 2011, where Gabriel Landeskog ended up going 3rd overall in that draft. I know or 2nd overall, I think, after Nugent Hopkins. But he was a player.
I disavow that damn you, Craig Anderson, though, Ross. Disavow.
Okay, he made up for it by beating the Leafs the other night.
Yeah, I mean, he's still helping out. Yeah, I mean, best goalie in Senators franchise history. So disavow that comment.
I know. I'm just having some fun here. But with the Avalanche, who are we going to see tonight? If you're watching on YouTube, the lineup is pulled up. Pilsy, would you like me to run through it, or do you want to?
Doesn't matter to me. I can show off my reading skills here.
I know everybody is just eyeing that 4th line right winger, who I didn't know was still in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. So the top line is Rodriguez with McKinnon, Rantanen. That is any line with McKinnon and Rantanen. I mean, those two could be a 2-player forward line, and I would still be nervous about them.
How many points would you get if you played 82 NHL games on a line with McKinnon and Rantanen?
At least 25.
That's a high number. I was going to say 10.
No, I'm going 25 points. I could get 25. Wait, how many points? Oh, Rodriguez hasn't played up there the whole time, though. I think he's got 30 points, and I'm pretty comparable to Evan Rodriguez. And then second line, you've got Nichushkin with Comfer and Malgin. So you're already seeing the injuries there. That would not be a reigning Stanley Cup champions second line, that's for sure. Cogliano with Eller and O'Connor. And the fourth line, Nieto with Newhook. And former Sens legend, Alex Galchenyuk. This guy's making his rounds. He's going to play on every single team this in the NHL by the time his career is done. Then you've got Taves and Makar on the back end, Gerard and Byram, and Johnson and Hunt. And Georgiev did play last night up against the Leafs, and Francouz is out. So that would leave Keith Kincaid as the likely starter tonight. That is another reason to be positive here, because that's a guy that hasn't played a whole lot in the NHL recently.
Yeah, recently. I was shocked to see that tonight's going to be his 170th NHL game, but a lot of those coming years and years ago. The Avalanche, though, still on a 3-game win streak, and they still have Nathan MacKinnon, who leads the team with 82 points in 55 games this year. The Avalanche are 6-3-1 in their last 10. They are 38-22-6 on the season. And because of some ups and downs throughout the year, this Avalanche team are far from guaranteed a spot in the top 3 in the Central Division. They are battling it out with Winnipeg right now, kind of to and fro, but they do have 2 games in hand on Winnipeg and have pulled to 3 points ahead. So they can finish, to me, that Avalanche team can finish anywhere from second to second wild card, like second in the division or second wild card. It's really dependent. So you're not getting a team like Ottawa when they play Boston next Tuesday. You're looking at a team who's clinched all but everything at this point. Like maybe they're looking for some all-time records. I know the points record is a little bit watered down when you get these overtime losses and all that. But this Avalanche team, like, they're fighting for their playoff positioning. So I think it's going to be a real good test. Look at that defensive core, man. Like, that top pair, that might be the top defensive pair in the league, right? Devin Taves and Cale Makar.
I don't know who can match them. Yeah.
No. But then the second pair, you look at that, there's a lot of offensive talent. That pair was actually provided by the Ottawa Senators because they got Samuel Girard in the Nashville part of the Matt Duchene trade, and Bowen Byram was the 4th overall pick that Ottawa decided would be moved in the Duchene trade. Could you imagine an alternate universe where Ottawa has Bowen Byram, and obviously, health aside, we wish all the best for Byram, who's dealt with some head and concussion issues early in his career. But could you imagine the alternate universe if Brady Tkachuk was a member of the Colorado Avalanche and Ottawa had Bowen Byram as the star of the rebuild?
No, I couldn't. I was losing my mind with all the people in the media that were saying the Ottawa Senators should have deferred that pick. Like, that was the craziest thing. Even some people we respect and have had on this show were very adamant that they needed to defer. I was ready to pull my hair out when I saw people say that. That was wild.
That was making sense of the Sens days back in 2018, and it gave us the opportunity for our best episode title of all time when we were looking at who the Sens should take.
You what remember? Was it? No.
NHL Draft Foreplay, but felt number 4. That was good. Before SEO mattered.
I don't know, Ross. That is a good one, but one that I'll always hold on my resume is when Alexander Ovechkin, I think he scored like 4 goals, and my title for the pod was "The Sens get overwhelmed by the Caps." I mean, come on, that's pretty good.
Everybody gets overwhelmed every once in a while. Ovechkin and the Capitals did beat the Buffalo Sabres in a shootout yesterday. Again, 3-point game. Hate to see it, but at least the Caps got the extra point because they've played like 35 more games than everybody else. So at least there's that. Now let's turn our attention to the Senators. Before we get to the lineup, what are you hoping to see from Ridley Greig tonight? He was back in Belleville for what? A 10-game stretch, it felt like, since he was sent down. The Senators are 7-3-1 when he's in the NHL lineup. I understand, though, it did seem like he was hitting a bit of that initial wall that we've discussed. It happens to almost everyone, and we'll get into it later and maybe in the offseason, but that's why I'm still like feeling positive about the future. These games do matter in terms of getting everyone up to the level and consistency and how you have to play over 82 games. Like, it makes sense you hit a wall. You play every other night and then some with this, what seems to be condensed schedule this season in the NHL. Games, way too many games, but that's a story for another day. What are you hoping to see from Ridley Greig tonight?
I just want to see him play with confidence. Like, I want to see him be a physical guy out there. I feel like that's when he's at his best. And I think having him playing with Claude Giroux is so important here because it was almost hilarious how badly Claude Giroux wanted to help this kid out. Like, he was going out of his way to feed him passes, passing back when he should shoot, like all these kinds of things. So I think Claude Giroux and Ridley Greig is a great pair there. And yeah, you mentioned it, Ross. As he kind of kept going on in the NHL, his minutes really dwindled. Like, his last 3 games in the NHL, he played 11:55, 11:55, and 12:15. So it was clear to DJ Smith that he wasn't really up to the task. And that's fair. That was a big assignment for a guy coming into the NHL to play on the second line with Claude Giroux and Alex DeBrincat. And now he goes back to the minors. He works on some things. He has a couple good games down there. And I think he's going to be more well-equipped to handle this time better. And really, Ross, I think if Shane Pinto is able to carry consistent play and he's able to carry that second line, we don't see this move. But it simply hasn't worked for Shane Pinto, and he needs to be on the third line. So I like this move. And I think, honestly, Ross, I think it could have happened a little bit earlier even.
Shane Pinto is one of those guys I mentioned where he's never played this much hockey in a season. 67 games. He's one of the rare Senators who's played in all 67 games this season. And you still look at the scoring numbers, and it's a success when you look at it in the offseason where he's probably going to hit 20 goals, over 30 points. But defensively, I think that's what he's going to focus on this summer is being the guy he was in college, that two-way stud. I think he needs to take a step forward there. Sens actually have a lot of guys who have played. They have 6 players who have played in all 67 games this year. Knock on wood, but that seems to be a pretty good number of guys staying healthy. On the flip side, only 5-6 games of Josh Norris. You wish that could be a little bit more pronounced in the season. However, you're looking at Ridley Greig and the way that his numbers dwindled. He only had 1 point in his last 6 games. Do you remember what it was?
Was it his goal?
It was his first NHL goal. Do you remember where it was in the game?
It was like the 7th goal or something like that, right?
The 7th goal in a 7-2 win over St. Louis at home.
Yeah.
But it was good to see, hey, first NHL goal, get the monkey off his back, and now he's hopefully going to come up, and you get that taste of the charter planes and the NHL food. You never want to go back. So now we'll see what he can do here. He had 3 points in his first 5 games, and again, the Senators have 7 wins in 11 games with him in the lineup. You teased it. Where's he going to play today? On a line with Claude Giroux and Alex DeBrincat. That leaves Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, and Drake Batherson rounding out the top 6. The third line completely changed. We have Shane Pinto between Derek Brassard and Patrick Brown. Then the fourth line, Dylan Gambrell with Julien Gauthier and Austin Watson. We already talked about the defense in segment 1. Chychrun and Hamonic, Sanderson and Zub, and Chabot and Brannstrom. We're expecting Mad Sogard to get the start tonight. He is on a bit of a tough stretch right now on that road trip. As the Senators faltered, so did the numbers for the Great Dane. And you hope that the home cooking, maybe that familiarity looking up from the net where he was, because at home, he's been tremendous this season. You look at his home record, 3-0-1 with a .917 save percentage. He's only allowed 8 even strength goals in those 5 games, Pilsy. So I'm expecting big things tonight from the Great Dane. The extras are Mark Kastelik and Nick Holden. Parker Kelly did not skate this morning. We think he's nursing a minor injury. And unfortunately, and I haven't added it to injured yet, I was too sad, I guess, but Matthew Joseph is out weeks with an injury suffered in the game against Calgary.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably going to be the season for Matthew Joseph, which is very disappointing because this is a season where he just hasn't been able to keep it going consistently. He's had flashes where he's looked good, but
0 even strength goals.
And even like 3 total goals is
0 even strength goals in 47 games.
Yeah, so this has been a tough year for Matthew Joseph, especially after coming off a big contract. So you hate to see it, but I mean, this gives other players an opportunity, and other guys are going to have to step up here. And I think we're going to, I know I've said it, but I really feel and hope that we're going to see a much different Ottawa Senators effort tonight.
Pilsy, you're a locked on player for tonight's game.
I'm going to take Ridley Greig. I mean, coming back from the Belleville Senators, they've been having some success recently. We'll get into that. They're going to miss him, that's for sure. But this is a fresh opportunity. I think it's good, Ross, for players to come up, get a decent time in the NHL, and then go back down, understand what it takes and how different the NHL game is from the AHL, and know what to work on, and have those coaches down in Belleville really helping their development. And now he's going to come back up with a much more kind of prepared idea of what he needs to do to be successful. So I think we might see a big night from Ridley Greig, Ross. And there was a couple games, I'm looking at his game log now, there was a couple, like his debut, Ridley Greig had 8 shots on goal. Like, that's insane. So I think if he can keep firing the puck on net and play with that physical edge, he's going to be successful. So I'm going to be very locked on to Ridley Greig.
Fun fact, he had 7 shots in his next 10 games.
Yeah, crazy. Wow.
I'm excited to see Ridley on Saturday. He might be my locked on player for the Leafs game because,
Nice.
you hope that he's that pesky just piece of crap to play against. But tonight, my locked on player is Mads Søgaard. I mentioned the home save percentage. Goaltending, we know it as a hashtag goalie friendly show. It's the most important position in the sport. And when your confidence wavers, it's really hard sometimes to get it back. And we've seen that with Søgaard. We've discussed it on this show plenty. In that Søgaard, and even the AHL, there's times where he looks amazing, and there's times where you can tell like he's beating himself up. He's too hard on himself. It's that Jack Campbell disorder where like he blames himself for everything, and you have to understand that there's a lot more to it. And I think the team's doing a good job of telling him that. At least Brady through the media has been very clear. This is not a Mads Søgaard problem. This is an Ottawa Senators problem. But I just hope, and again, goaltending is a strange thing. I think as simple as looking up and seeing the home crowd, seeing the Jumbotron, being like, I've had success in this building, I think that could help him. So I'm going to be very locked on to Mads Søgaard for tonight's game.
Yeah, I really hope he can have a bounce back game because it feels like it's been his fault. I mean, when there's multiple stretches of allowing 5 goals on the road, it's tough not to take that onto yourself as a goalie, but it really hasn't been. I think this team, just the effort isn't where they're used to. So
there's like one goal that we've been able to call out that's been like, that's a bad goal. The Draisaitl fan on a shot.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, like these are 2-on-1s, like the Bukestad goal, like he's got speed coming in. Everyone's controller dies. He goes backhand cheese. Like there's been some egregious defensive breakdowns.
Yeah. What are you going to do if you're a young goalie like that? So I'm not blaming him too much there. So yeah. And hey, we got to ride with Søgaard and Mando for a couple more weeks now, Ross. So we better hope that they can get some... not that they're not confident right now. I don't want to have that spin zone going. But we better hope that they can kind of boost themselves and the team helps them as well.
Completely agree. Give me a lookout player for Colorado.
My lookout player is one of my favorite players in the league, and it's Mikko Rantanen. I know there's Makar, I know there's McKinnon, but Rantanen is just such an absolute stud. He's on a 5-game point streak right now, Ross, with 7 points in that stretch. This is a guy that you cannot take lightly. Like, you can't kind of double team McKinnon and leave Rantanen open because he'll make you pay. He's got 44 goals this year. Quietly one of the best goal scorers in the league. So I'm always looking out for Mikko Rantanen, and I will be tonight.
I'm going to be looking out for Cale Makar. This guy is a unicorn on the back end. Over a point per game in his first 4 years in the NHL. Let that say. He has 63 goals. Wow. I don't know how many players have 63 goals in their first 4 seasons in the NHL, let alone defensemen. Last season, Pilsy, his 28 goals would have ranked second on Ottawa behind Brady Tkachuk. Goals. This guy's a defenseman. He's absolutely ridiculous. The reigning Norris winner.
So good.
The reigning Conn Smythe winner. He's already a 3-time All-Star, and he's already finished second in Norris and first in Norris voting the last 2 seasons. So if you're going to the game like our good friend Matthew Hall is tonight, courtesy of Shawarma Palace, you are going to have a treat watching Cale Makar play hockey. He's coming off he's on, oh my goodness, what kind of point streak is this kid on right now? More than the 5 games they show on Hockey Reference. He's on a 6-game point streak, Pilsy. 2 goals and 9 assists for 11 points in his last 6 games. Did I mention he's a defenseman?
It's insane what this kid is able to do. Like he truly might be the greatest defenseman of this generation. And
what did you say last time where it usually happens consistently?
Almost consistently.
He might be the greatest defenseman ever. Were the wording of what you said there was great.
Yeah, I said he might be the greatest defenseman of this generation.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Hey, So Sens fans who are used to Erik Karlsson, offensive brilliance, you see it on the back end. Sometimes there's some mistakes. This guy doesn't make he's a two-way defenseman who's just elite offensively.
And that signature Cale Makar move where we've seen highlight where he's on that left side near the hash mark on the half wall and then just does this crazy pivot that no one's ready for and then just scores on the goalie top shelf. Like, this kid's an animal. For him to have 29 points in 20 playoff games last playoffs is insane.
Pressure doesn't matter to this kid. He's ice cold.
No, and I think it was Landeskog right after they won the cup, or I forget who it was, but he was being interviewed on the ice, and the reporter asked him, what can other teams learn from the Colorado Avalanche how to win a cup? And he's like, go get Cale Makar. It's that simple.
Praise. High praise from the captain of the Colorado Avalanche. You got a key to victory?
Key to victory for me is play with high tempo, high energy, and pace. We looked at those lines. Like, there's so many injuries on this team. They're on the second half of a back-to-back where they go not only to overtime, but shootout. Yes, as you mentioned, Toronto to Ottawa, that's not exactly gruesome traveling, but this is going to be a tired team with lots of injuries and guys that need to play elevated performances. And we don't know yet, not confirmed, but you're likely getting a third-string goalie, which, I mean, I guess the Senators also are starting a third-string goalie. But what I'm saying is, for once, Ross, I think I've had this as my key to victory multiple times. The Ottawa Senators need to take advantage of a down, bad, tired team. They need to be able to do it. So I'm not saying they're going to out-talent these guys. We just talked about Rantanen, Makar. We didn't even mention McKinnon, like absolute legend. So you might not out-talent them, but you need to push the pace, especially at home where you've got that advantage with the line changes and you can get the matchups you want. So I just want to see this team play with high energy. That's why I'm going to be putting a decent amount of shekels on the FanDuel first to 5 shots for the Sens, because I think they're going to come out of the gate flying. Ridley Greig's going to get 5 shots right away.
Okay. That's a hot take. I wonder what that goes for. FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Now, my key to victory is don't try to score 4 goals at once. That sounds stupid, but it felt like Ottawa was cheating offensively all trip. When they go down 2 goals, they try to score 3. They cheat offensively. Just go through the process. Don't try to force offense. If they play the right way, offense will come as a result of it. So don't try to get 3 goals off the bat. Don't try to score early where it's like, oh, we need the fans into it or else. No, play a composed game and let the results show.
So you're going opposite key to victory than me.
In a sense, I think it's more so like the Chicago game comes up where Luke Richardson said in the media, the head coach of the Hawks, like they weren't finishing their defensive plays.
He was dead on. on.
No, I think the tempo you need to be high, which is what you're saying, but don't cheat offensively.
Okay.
The offense comes from solid play in your own zone. Carry that momentum up. And can we please see a goddamn power play goal again? Please, please. It was so fun, even though it went off a defenseman and in. Like I want. Can we get just like a classic one-timer power play goal? Just one? Just for a treat? I'd love it.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Hey, the Tom Bomb could help for that. This guy's wrap up today's show with a little Belleville talk. Dude, Lassie Thompson went from like not scoring in 3 or 4 months to now having like 4 goals this week.
Yeah, Lassie Thompson has really improved, and he scores with, I think, 14 seconds left in the game here to give the Senators a 4-3 win over the Utica Comets at home. So this makes things very interesting, Ross. We might not be standings watching too excitedly for the Ottawa Senators, but we can do that for Belleville as they are now just 2 points out of a playoff spot behind Rochester. Now, yes, Rochester does have 3 games in hand. That's important to note, but Belleville's doing everything they can to control their own destiny. And despite playing with PTO and university goalies, they're getting it done here. And you got to give credit where credit's due. David Bell and Ben Sexton, the assistant coaches that have stepped up here for this squad, have done a really good job since they've had to do that.
4 goals in the last 4 games for Lassie Thompson. He has 6 points in those 4 games. And the Eels crew stand up because Roby Yarventi also on a 4-game point streak with 3 goals and an assist.
And Ross, Roby has 9 goals in his last 12 games.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
As a centerman.
And he's only got 12 and 28 on the season. So you're looking at a guy who's really picked his game up, and that's coinciding with more wins for the Belleville Senators. Up next for them, they've got a weekend series against the last place team in their division, the Cleveland Monsters. So you need to go in there and get 4 road points, right? Because right now they're 2 points out of a playoff spot, but Rochester has 3 games in hand. So fun weekend coming up. We'll catch up with David Foote maybe next week or the week after. And check out the Belleville Sens podcast. They've got that rocking and rolling with footy. So it's a quick half-hour way to get all your Belleville Sens info as well. So shout out to those guys doing great work. Next time you can find us is on the postcast tonight. Brandon Piller and at Laleem's Martian will have you covered. I'm stuck at work, but I'll have all my takes locked and loaded for tomorrow on Locked On Senators. Pillsy, any final thoughts today?
Final thoughts are let's get that home cooking going. Let's give these fans, let's give the 100 kids from the Boys and Girls Club, let's give Matthew Hall something to cheer about here, because they even Ross, I'm not even looking big picture at the playoff race here. They just need a morale boost here. That road trip was devastating. So let's get a boost here for the boys and the fans.
My final thoughts, and our boy at Laleem's Martian, I'm assuming he's referencing a Jacob Chychrun interview from this morning. Jacob Chychrun is looking currently for a local meat supplier or farmer who can provide fresh beef liver and fresh dairy and eggs so he can keep his diet going. Pillsy, where would you send him?
I mean, you got to go to Farm to Fork. That is the ultimate meat supplier for the Ottawa area. Now, I don't know if he's looking for tomahawks, the Farm to Fork special, but I'm sure we can work something out for him there.
Oh, they've got liver at Farm to Fork.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
They've got everything you need at Farm to Fork. And somebody please let Jacob know that if he uses Sens40, he'll get $40 off his first order at Farm to Fork. Farm to Fork delivery.ca. Always support our sponsors. It directly helps support us. So we appreciate everyone. Sens40, if you want March Madness. They've got a March Madness bundle, by the way.
Ooh.
On Farm to Fork. So go check that out. Delivered right to your door. My final thoughts, though. Somebody get Jacob Chychrun on the horn with Farm to Fork. Let's make that diet happen for them. For more, you can follow us on Twitter at Sens Central, on Instagram, lockedon.senators. We'll chat later today. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.